What's up, everyone? Connor O'Hanlon here for another episode of the Greater Society podcast. And today is a very special podcast, one that I've kind of been hyping up since the beginning of the show, the rebooting of the show. Starting from nothing to where we are today, we are getting a guest that I've been looking forward to having on for a very, very long time. And that is State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. And former candidate for the United States Senate. We will get into that, of course, and then later on, we will dive into some of the fallout with the Twitter and Elon Musk drama, because of course we can't avoid some of that fun stuff in this dire situation that we are living in. But with that being said, I'm going to actually introduce our special guest for the night, State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm excited to be with you, and thank you for for building up this platform and having these conversations, and I'm excited to be with you. Now I know you are in Bucks, but I got my Erie mug going, so that's what we're getting tonight.
I wish I had my Doylestown Democrats mug. I'd give you one eventually. I'll get an extra one. So I'm just gonna dive right into it, and obviously for anybody watching, feel free to throw questions in the chat. But I guess the obvious question is to start off any of these conversations, and I think you're what, 33?
I'll be 32 at the end of this month, believe it or not, on the 30th. Yeah.
So you would be extremely young to have been a United States Senator. And I think that's extremely inspirational to me, and I used it as an inspiration to do what I'm doing. But I guess, rewind us a little bit. What got you involved in politics? What kind of made you say, hey, I want to do this, I want to get involved, and I want to run for office?
I got involved really, really young. My dad went to school for social work, was a social worker for all of his life. My mom trained as a CNA and was a home health aide for most of her life. And they actually met, believe it or not, on Temple University's campus, where I ended up going to school, where my dad went to college. And, I always joke, but I mean it seriously. I did have the best parents in the world. They just didn't like each other that much. And so, they had me, adopted my three siblings, but they did separate by the time I was still pretty young. I'm the youngest, out of my siblings. And so for me, what that meant was I lived a bunch of different places by the time I graduated high school. And the first time I got engaged, I'm living at probably the second house since my parents separated. And I'm on this block, which used to be in my state house district, got redistricted out on Woodstock Street. And, I'm upset about everything, right? I'm 11 or 12 years old, and I'm just mad about everything, but in part frustrated by the blight and the trash that I saw on this block that I was living on in this new neighborhood that I had moved to. And I remember coming home to my mom, we're in this new house. I hate it here. This block is, dirty, whatever. And she said, well, you know what? If you care so much, why don't you go do something about it? And I was like, oh, okay. I thought she was going to just commiserate with me. But instead, she was like, oh, fucking get out there and do something about it. Yeah. And I ran for junior block captain. And that was the first thing I ever did civically. And it gave me this real sense early on that A, nobody was coming to save us. And B, just as a young kid, that there was a way that I could be involved. And I've never lost that sense that what I have to say and what so many of us have to say, it really matters. And we shouldn't buy into this idea that we should just shut up and wait for somebody else who's going to be better or more effective at speaking out for our concerns. You know what? People who have lived a lot of the concerns that are facing people, we're all talking about, rising prices right now. But I will tell you, if you come from a family like mine, if the cost of anything goes up by any amount, that's a real thing and has a real impact on the quality of life. And so I've learned that very early on, and I felt like we needed more people who came from blocks like Woodstock Street to step up and be involved in government. And certainly, I think, we need that in the U.S. Senate. And we ran very hard, and worked very hard, and I think did very well with the resources that we had running for the first time statewide. But now I'm doing everything I can to help John Fetterman become our next U.S. Senator.
Absolutely, and I'm right there with you. Trust me. I didn't run statewide, obviously, but I'm right there with you helping, and we're going to do everything we can this year. Obviously, we both know that it's extremely important this year to elect John, to elect Josh Shapiro to be our next governor. Yeah. And anybody that's watched the show knows that that's what I hammer home every single time I'm on a camera. I'm probably talking about Pennsylvania politics. So, but with that being said, I have in the previous iteration of the show, before it was the Greater Society podcast, on my old show, I had one of your colleagues on, Brian Sims, who was running for lieutenant governor at the time. And I also find it interesting to see that you are one of the only openly gay representatives in Harrisburg, and frankly, probably in the country on some level. And I just wanted to ask you, what has that been like? Especially, I know you got married during your campaign, which congratulations. I actually met your husband before I met you, so way back. So, but just tell me a little bit about that. What's it kind of like dealing? Does it present its own? I mean, I kind of know that it does, but does it present its own hurdles and maybe ways that you have to navigate around Harrisburg a little bit different than maybe a straight or cisgender person that can kind of navigate normally in Harrisburg? What has been some of the things you've learned in that pathway?
Frankly, I think this might not be the answer you expected. I think it provides advantages, not disadvantages. I think that folks who are on the margins, I think you understand intuitively what it means to fight for your basic dignity and respect. And, unfortunately, frankly, that is a struggle that is ongoing, not just externally, but, there's internalized ways in which you have to relearn things as well. And so I think I walked into this job, and I've said this multiple times. I think people who know what it's like to be treated differently or unfairly simply because of who you are, I think you make a better legislator. I think it makes you more sensitive to people who are fighting to also receive that fairness and dignity and respect. Even if it's not within your own experience, you're more sensitive to it. I think it puts you in a position where, particularly as somebody who inhabits a variety of different, worlds that I exist in, it puts me in a spot where I'm fluent in talking to a bunch of different communities that help you build the type of coalition that you need to build. I am young, right? And so I am, front and center with so many of the concerns, be it climate, be it the student debt crisis, be it all these octogenarians who, still are on the Supreme Court and in the Senate, and the things that aren't even top of mind to them, that they have to be convinced to do, that to me is duh, clean air, clean water, duh, of course we do that. And so those are people who easily are hey, I want to be a part of that coalition because this guy gets it. And I don't get it because somebody told me I should get it. I get it because this is my life. When we're talking about, issues that relate to, criminal justice reform, safe communities, the inequity that we've seen for so many years in terms of, what programs we fund or don't fund, including critical things like public education. These are not hypothetical things for me. And so I've never seen my divergent ways of existing in the world as something that I should be, ashamed of, or that make life harder, for me. There are certainly a lot of systematic challenges for folks who inhabit the groups that I inhabit. I think that that's, just statistically true. But I think in that as well, there's all this untapped potential and a perspective that frankly, I think people are hungry for and that our government is better off for having. And so I've seen it as a superpower, and it gives me the opportunity to go in unabashedly and speak about things from a variety of different perspectives. I mean, literally, I'm sending a letter tomorrow morning to the Secretary of Health about monkeypox, right? And like what we're doing. I don't know any other legislator in Pennsylvania who's been talking about that, who's, thinking about that. When we talked about COVID and the impact that it was having on, Black and brown communities, I was also somebody like, hey, wait, like LGBTQ groups we know have a bunch of comorbidities that make it more likely that they could be infected and, die from this pandemic in the same way. And so we had to say to the governor, hey, wait, don't forget, as we're getting more data around how this is impacting Black communities, which I also was speaking up about, we also want to make sure we're not excluding people. And so having those different vantage points, being able to look through things through, through sort of a prism, right, and see all the different ways that stuff is reflected out, that has made me a better legislator, in part because as a legislator, you are inundated every single day with a variety of different issues. No 5 minutes is the same, let alone no, single day is the same. And I think I've come in armed with the ability to pivot in a way that some of my colleagues frankly can't.
I think that is the answer I wanted to hear, actually. I think that you might be surprised on that one. But speaking of some of those like issues, I think I really liked when you were campaigning for Senate, talking about the basic bargain of the country. And that, to me, that's why I call the show the Greater Society Podcast, because it's building upon the Great Society and the New Deal and these things that seem like, this is what Democrats fought for our whole lives. Speaking of one of those issues, though, within the last couple of weeks, obviously, we both know, and everyone watching the show knows, with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, we are inundated with, not just in Pennsylvania, but we'll get to your response to it, which I found very admirable. But just in general, across the country, we're seeing states outright ban abortion. We're seeing just the destruction of the right to privacy, the destruction of women's rights, the destruction of reproductive rights. But I guess from your perspective, what do you think we can do with this specific issue? And I guess rhetorically speaking, not rhetoric, like rhetorically I know the answer, but like actual rhetoric, how do you think that Democrats should go forward into this election cycle talking about the issue?
So first of all, I think we have to go into this election cycle bravely and with a lot of hope and joy. And that feels so contrary to what the current narrative is. The narrative is, well, of course, Democrats are going to lose. The question is, how bad do we lose by? Of course, Democrats are in disarray. We're having all these, in my view, silly conversations about who the president will be 90 years from now, and not conversations about who your state rep is going to be 5 months from now or 4 months from now, wherever the hell we are with it. And so for me, we have to stay very focused and recognize that, at least here in Pennsylvania, I can't speak about every state, but what excites me is we have candidates who not only are going to be able to hold back the gates of hell in terms of folks who want to take us in a drastically dangerous direction here in the Commonwealth, where abortion remains safe and legal, but where Republicans certainly want to change that here in the Commonwealth, where we have a governor who has vetoed every effort to try to roll back the right to vote, make it more difficult to vote. And certainly there are folks who are running for office who want to change that. We have a governor who, went to the mat in Governor Wolf to expand and have the biggest increase in basic education and special education funding in Pennsylvania history. And obviously there are candidates on the other side who want to roll that back. But we have candidates who are running who also want to do those things and who want to go even further. We have candidates who are running who are talking about, expanding the child tax credit, which we just, passed a very, very narrow version of We have candidates who are running who are not just talking about protecting Roe, but candidates who would be co-sponsors for my bill with Representative Morgan Cephas, which is called the Pennsylvania Women's Health Protection Act, which would get rid of some of the barriers that still exist right now for folks who get pregnant to be able to access basic abortion care. We have people running who are laser focused on raising the minimum wage, who are talking about what we can do to make state government run more efficiently and effectively, what we can do to lower property taxes, particularly for our seniors, and build on the progress that we've made. And so the good news for us is that we have folks who we can be excited about supporting, not just feel like, oh, well, we have to support them because they're a Democrat. No, these are good candidates who are running. There are folks who are running who are just working moms who decided they're going to step up and run for state rep. You have people who are running who are small business owners who are like, hey, we're going to step up and be a voice for people who had a great idea and wanted to start something in their community. And we don't have enough of that from the folks who've run Harrisburg for over 30 years. 30 years, Republicans have been in charge. And so when I hear them whine and cry about what hasn't been done, we cannot trust somebody who's done the same thing for 30 years to now be the people who are going to save us. We have incredible candidates who I think are going to be on the vanguard of protecting our democracy, but also expanding the promise of America and making sure it reaches every single family. And it's why, even after I lost the race, the day I got back from vacation, I was doing an event for Kathy Spar, who's running for state rep in Chester County. I'm going to be doing a bunch of events in Berks County for folks who are running up there, including Tim Brennan, who's running, and so many others. We have a chance to flip the state house, which we have not had in decades. And that excites me. And we have in Josh and in John, candidates who I know are not only going to win these races, but are going to go to to Harrisburg and to DC and actually move the needle on things that we care about.
Absolutely. I couldn't have asked for a better response there, honestly. I think that positive message is what set you apart. That's why you got my vote in the primary. Always putting forward your message. And look, negative partisanship is part of politics, but that positive message and saying, like, this is what we're going to do, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what Democrats are going to do is always something that I think that we should put forward as our message. And speaking of which, one of your other bills that I actually just saw you tweet about today, and I wanted to ask you about, was the hunger-free campus bill. And I wanted to see if you could just give me a little bit of a rundown, like what that is, what were the aims, and what all right, when's it going to be implemented?
Yeah, so this is really exciting. Also because we know that food insecurity is a huge challenge across Pennsylvania. 1 in 8 Pennsylvanians is food insecure. But on our college campuses, I think that there is this mythology that everybody who goes to college comes from some like middle-class family. And I think, you watch any movie about college, people driving their Ferraris onto campus. And I'm like, what college is that? I've never seen a campus like that. So many of our college campuses, you have what are called, non-traditional students. And what we need to understand about the data is that non-traditional students actually are the majority of students. And so quote unquote non-traditional students are the traditional student. These are people who are working multiple jobs, folks who, are raising families, people who are going back to pivot, somebody who's trying to upskill or reskill. And on those campuses, you find that there is real issues, not only with affording the cost of housing, affording supplies, but also being able to afford food. And I will tell you, Connor, I thought that I was alone. When I went to college, I'll never forget, and I laugh at myself now, but I didn't know. When I went to college, I got a syllabus, and they were like, oh, you need these books. And so I was like, oh, like, are you going to email the books to us? Or are they like, online? Or are you going to give us the books? They're like, no, you go to the bookstore and you buy these books. And I'm like, okay. And I went to the bookstore, and books were hundreds and hundreds of dollars. When you look at the meal plans that are available for students, these meal plans are tens of thousands of dollars in some instances a semester. And so there are so many students who can't afford that. And that means that they can't go to the local, food caf and swipe and get a meal. And so it creates this real, barrier and burden for colleges on campus. And so hunger-free campus legislation has been popping up around the country, and it does a number of different things. One is there's a requirement that schools, and there's some funding related to that. And the funding we got in this bill is just a pilot program. And me and Rep. O'Mara are going to be fighting to get the funding expanded. But one of the things for anybody who's been a legislator is you want to get a line item in the budget. If you can get a line item, then you can fund it. But getting that line in the budget is really hard. And we fought for over 2 years to get that line in the budget, to have colleges be in a position where they are educating students about programs that are available to them. I did not know through all my years in college that I would have been somebody who'd been eligible for food stamps. So I did not have them. Now I would not have been able to use those food stamps on campus in the meal centers, but still that would have been helpful instead of me like walking around to see who had an event tonight and how I could get pizza, which is like not the healthiest thing in the world. Also, it creates funding mechanisms for folks to get grants to do food pantries on campus, which have popped up at so many schools. But we've heard from schools when we did policy hearing after policy hearing on this topic that they were doing what they could, but that they didn't really have the resources to scale up these projects that they've started. And then also it allows us to start to explore, swipe programs. And so I mentioned, food, meal programs. There are so many students who will end the semester or the year with, a bunch of swipes that they did not use in their meal plan. And they want to give those to other people on campus who could benefit from it. And so we need to reimagine just the way we provide meals on our college campuses, particularly in a moment where I think the economy is requiring more people to go to community or 4-year college to get some skills to go back into the workforce and be upskilled to do all the different jobs that, clean energy technologies and other things are going to require us to have.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing bill. And I know at Penn State, I had plenty of those extra swipes sometimes when I had the meal plan. And I know that there was people that were food insecure. And frankly, my former campaign manager and my really good friend, Lindsay, who works with the Bucks County Housing Group, that's what they work on is food insecurity. It's not just housing. So we know that this exists here across the Commonwealth. I guess I'm running out of time with you, so I'm going to go with a speed round real quick, if that's okay.
Let's do it.
So I guess to start off, what was the biggest lesson that you learned through your Senate campaign?
Pennsylvania is a beautiful place. And I don't just mean from a topography, geography perspective. I had so many people, Connor, who said to me, and so many people, frankly, who didn't vote for me in this election because they bought into, I think, a flawed idea that, this person in this town, they're from a small town, they would never vote for a black guy from Philadelphia. It's nonsense. It's a lie. And what Republicans have been really good at is convincing us to hate one another because we don't know each other. I've gone to communities where there's nobody who looks like me, and I've been greeted with nothing but love and respect, with open arms, frankly. And I left this campaign with an even greater love for the Commonwealth and for the people that make up Pennsylvania.
Perfect. You not in response, following the primary election, you've been elected, I believe, to party leadership for the statewide party. Is that correct?
No. So we are going to have right now a state party that's going to work with Josh and work with John to make sure we elect Democrats up and down the ballot. But I'm going to be all across the Commonwealth where people might start thinking that. But my role is just a Pennsylvanian who wants to see this Commonwealth elect good people who are gonna win. And so I would seriously urge anybody who's listening here tonight who's like, hey Malcolm, I have an event coming up somewhere where we are doing something to help elect Democrats, and you can expect me to be there with bells on.
Perfect. My mistake there. But what would you say is the best advice for activists wanting to get involved with the party locally, statewide, et cetera?
So there's this incredible quote from James Baldwin that I'm going to butcher a little bit, but one of your really smart listeners is going to have it completely down. But Brother Baldwin said, go the way your blood boils. I say that quote to young people in particular all the time because you need to find the thing that you're most passionate about. You know, for me, I got involved in politics because of deep poverty, right? There was a bunch of other things I learned that I really cared about and other policy issues that I cared about that were not directly connected to that. But that was the reason that I got involved. That was my origin story. For somebody else, it's the cost of college. For somebody else, it is, you know, community safety and wanting to see more of that in their community. For somebody else, it's the overturning of Roe. Whatever that thing is, my best advice is to just get involved around the issue that you care about most first. And then you will inevitably meet people that will connect you to other stuff and to the broader, you know, infrastructure in your community. But just find the thing that, you know, you can't go to sleep without thinking about and get involved in that. And that could look like, you know, calling one of your elected officials. That could look like finding an organization. But I know that when you find community, when you find other people, when you find the other Connors of the world who also care about creating a greater society, that helps you sustain that passion that you have about your, you know, specific issue.
Great. And piggybacking off of that, what would be your best advice for maybe specifically young people? Because I think I'm 26, you're 31, we're pretty close in age here. Best advice for young people, and I mean young meaning like 45 and under at this point, that may feel disenfranchised, maybe by the party, maybe by the whole entire political system. How do you keep them going? What's your best advice to them? And maybe they want to run for office. What should they do?
So if you want to run for office, my advice is a 3-letter word: run. Run. And I do not say that because it is not a challenge to get involved, but I'm so excited to know that the Democratic ecosystem of groups and progressive groups are helping to make it easier. There's an organization called Run for Something that I cannot scream from the rooftops more highly about. I would encourage people to look up Run for Something. If you're, you know, an LGBTQI candidate running, look up Victory Fund, which is also helping people run for office. If you are a candidate of color, look into the Collective PAC, which is also training people to step up and run for office. I said this in my Senate campaign, and I will say it about any office. If we're going to have a government that actually works for working people, you got to elect working people. If we're going to have a government that works for young people, we have to elect young people. If we're going to elect a government that works for people who believe that we should address these intersecting crises, then you have to elect people who are dealing with those intersecting crises. So do not buy this idea that people who are elected are just so much smarter than you, that they know something about the world that you don't know. I promise you, these elected officials, so many of them, are not the brightest bulbs in the light. Okay, they're just not. They're just not. And some of the people I work with, I'm like, if they can fucking be elected, you can be elected. I promise you. I promise you.
That's what I've tried to instill that into all my messaging, especially when talking to other young folks, because I ran for the first time when I was 22 for township supervisor, and I lost by 38 votes. So if a 22-year-old smeared as a communist can almost win in Doylestown Township, which is not Democratic whatsoever, then across the state, across the country, you can do it too. And like piggybacking off what you said earlier, despite what people might say, they might think like, oh, you can't win, you can't do this, you can't do that. Just go and prove them wrong. So I think that I love that answer, and I really hope that people listening can take that and run with it. Literally, go run with it. So the last like real question I have for you is who or like what has been your biggest inspiration in your life in general? And by what I mean, like, it could be like a book, it could be, you know, whatever, a movie, whatever you think, or it could just be whoever you feel inspired by most.
So you know what? I can answer that question a bunch of different ways. I'll answer it a specific way today because of what happened today. Mary McLeod Bethune just became the first Black American to get a statue in Congress's, statue hall in Congress. Each state has two statues of, amazing people from that state. Mary McLeod Bethune, who was an incredible civil rights leader on so many issues, but particularly the education of Black women and girls. Her statue replaced the statue of a Confederate general. She is somebody who, she's one of the founders of Bethune-Cookman, which is an HBCU in Florida. And I would just encourage people who may not know Mary McLeod Bethune to go Google her today. But she is one of a large group, frankly, of American heroes whose life has been a guidepost and a star for me to look at, particularly when things feel so hard and tough. And this is a moment where I mentioned those, conflating crises that we're facing right now. I get hope from people like Mary McLeod Bethune, and that statue was unveiled today in Congress. And so I'm thinking about her a lot today. And I think she's somebody that folks who are listening to listening to our conversation, to your podcast tonight, that they would benefit from knowing more about Mary McLeod Bethune. Go Google it.
Awesome. That's I have to go Google that myself. Honestly, that's you stumped me there. So that's some real history. So with that being said, I want to thank you for coming on. I know you're super busy. You're running around everywhere. So funny enough, we were almost in Mexico at the same time.
Look at that!
I thought that was so funny. And when you come down to Doylestown or Bucks County, we'll come and get a drink. We'll get you to an event. Maybe I'm
looking forward to it.
We'll lift some weights. Maybe
you invite me, I'm there. You invite me, I'm there. And seriously, thank you for what you're doing to build this platform, to build this community of Greater Society listeners, because this is important. Anything that you can look at and be inspired by that somebody great did, we just get to see the end result of what happened. We don't get to, in real time, experience what it felt like for them on a daily basis. There are moments where your greatest hero lost hope, lost faith, got tired, but you know about them because they didn't give up. And so this is our moment as a society to not give up on this experiment in democracy, to not give up on each other, and to continue to press toward the mark, as my religious tradition teaches me.
Well, I can't thank you enough. Where can people find you if they don't know where to already find you? I mean, I feel like if someone's watching my show, they might already know who you are. But,
at Malcolm Kenyatta everywhere. At Malcolm Kenyatta everywhere.
Perfect.
2 L's in Malcolm, 2 T's in Kenyatta.
Perfect. And I spelled it right, too. Thank God.
You always get it right now.
All right, Malcolm. Thank you so much. Friend. State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. Hey, you're always welcome on this show. So maybe I'll have you back.
Anytime you have me, my friend. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
All right, everybody. With that, we are going to transition over into something that I wanted to show. Logistically, it would have been tough to show prior to actually having Malcolm on, but this was a video from last week, actually, when I was on vacation, in response to, and I'll lay the groundwork here for a second, just because this is really, 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 really important. The way, actually, if you go and rewind back 2 weeks ago or 2.5 weeks ago when Roe was overturned, on that day I actually said, can we propose, and I mean we being Democrats, propose a constitutional amendment that would get on the ballot, basically, which usually the Republicans do, to enshrine the right to access to an abortion. Now, the Republicans must have been listening to this because they did the opposite, which was propose a constitutional amendment to the Pennsylvania Constitution that would functionally ban abortion. So we're going to listen to Malcolm on the floor of the the PA State House, and this is in response to the Pennsylvania Senate specifically trying to extend the hours and vote through this constitutional amendment that would functionally ban abortion in the Commonwealth. So we're going to take a second here and we're going to listen to this. And
mentioned numerous times that this bill, SB 106, is about more than protecting the freedom to choose. And that's right. It is about more than just the freedom to choose. And so I think it is worth the time to actually dissect some of these half-lies and to tell the whole truth about what is in this bill. And I'd like to do it one by one. And so we've had a number of my colleagues on the other side. They have suggested numerous times that if we pass SB 106, nothing will change. They've said it so many times that this bill would not actually ban abortion, that this bill would do nothing to make this Commonwealth more pro-life. This bill is just more of the same. Why are you here at 7:30 to do something that does nothing? That's a half-truth, and it's starting to feel like a lie. I've heard my colleagues on the other side. These folks trust voters now. They trust the voters.
Here's where it goes sideways.
64 members of the Republican Party signed a letter to throw out the votes of Pennsylvania voters. But now you trust the voters.
Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen, please suspend.
I will not suspend. I will.
Gentlemen, please suspend.
For everyone listening, they muted Malcolm's mic.
Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen will suspend. It's off. It's off.
The speaker muted his mic. So we can't hear what he's saying.
Gentlemen, suspend. For what purpose does the gentleman, the majority leader, rise? The gentleman will suspend. House will be at ease.
Guy breaks his gavel. So, see, like, this is the type of thing to me where that's a fighter. You know, I don't care if you voted for John Fetterman or if you voted for Connor Lamb, although you're probably not watching this if you voted for Connor Lamb. But that is somebody who's fighting for the average person. That is somebody that is why I find Malcolm inspirational. That is why I want him on the show. That is why I want him to be a spokesperson for the Democratic Party. And frankly, that is why he is the future of the party, just like you and me can be. Just like the people that are watching this can be an influence and an inspiration to other people. Like Malcolm said, any one of us can at any point start what we are meant to be doing down the line. At any point, we could be the inspiration to somebody else taking the steps to run for office, to do this, to do that. And that is somebody that is fighting for reproductive rights, specifically in that clip. But you know that that is not just like, oh, he's doing it because he's campaigning. Because he's not campaigning. He's not just somebody that is running for something and needs to get his name out in the press. That is somebody that cares and is fighting for people in Harrisburg as somebody in, like, the Democrats are in the minority in Harrisburg. I had a question David asked earlier. In Pennsylvania, are there enough Democrats to outvote the Republicans? And I don't know if you mean voters, because voters, yes, but the problem is in the actual state house and the state senate, the Democrats are in the minority. The new maps proposed give a potential route to Democrats taking control of the state house, not really the state senate. So that is why it's so vital that we spend the time fighting to elect Josh Shapiro and spend the time where Malcolm ran. This is what's important, and a lesson I think that he might not specifically say, but a lesson that I learned from his race especially is losing. And again, like I'm putting it in quotes because yeah, he did technically lose, but also you gain the experience of running, but losing with grace and then saying, you know what, I didn't get across the finish line this time. Maybe next time I'll get it, or I'm going to get it next time, however you want to go about it. But I gotta fight for the next person in line, because that person is gonna fight for our rights. That person, John Fetterman, who I really do like as well, is going to be a tie-breaking vote potentially in the Senate to end the filibuster, to pass federal legislation, to get federal judges on the circuit courts, to get Supreme Court justices, if that is an option at the point in the next couple of years. So that is the most vital part, on top of John Fetterman also being a progressive candidate. That is the type of fire that we want in a state representative, and that is somebody, as Sam throws in the chat, we want someone like him in the United States House. We haven't had like you're saying. I don't know how much I really want to draw the comparison to who you put in the chat, but we haven't seen the people with the flair and the fire to fight in the same way, and we do see it with some of the squad members, I think personally, but they get cast aside a lot of the times. They don't get the mainstream media coverage that maybe someone more accepted like Malcolm has been, because Malcolm gets himself on national news media, which is why it's incredible that he's sitting here with me. So that is why it's always important to look forward, look for the state rep candidate, look for the township supervisor, the mayor, the people that and the state rep is a big step forward in those progressions, but the county officials, these people that are making your life better and fighting for you, and you have to go out and find some of them, because you know what, sometimes it's not always the easiest for them to go and find you. So if you're watching this show, before we pivot into some of this like stuff in the end here, if you're watching this show and you somehow found this through the interview with Malcolm, or you follow him, or you any sort of things that you've never followed me before, if you live in Doylestown, if you live in Bucks County, if you live in Pennsylvania, or if you live in the United States, you have to find a progressive or a Democratic organization. This is my call to action here, to get involved with. If you cannot organize, if you cannot volunteer, donate. If you can't do any of that, social media. If you can't do any of that, see if you can write postcards. Do anything that you can do to help a campaign, help a candidate get elected. Focus on a specific issue. If my issue is healthcare, I vote on that issue, right? I would find the candidate that most represents me and go fight for them. I would go and find people if you're in Bucks County, go work for Ashley Ehas and try to get her, she's going to be on next week, by the way. That is somebody that you need to go and fight for on the county level, to fight for us in the United States House, and actually put the people first. But you have to put in the effort as well. And it's not, democracy is at a crossroads right now, frankly. And we have to decide, the most politically engaged people, because let's be honest here, if you are watching this show, you are politically engaged in some fashion. We have to decide how we move forward. We have to decide collectively, how do we get progressive candidates, Democrats elected across this country to protect our democracy. We can have our squabbles, we can have our fights, I can pick and choose what policies I do and do not like from the Biden administration. I can criticize it all. But now is the time, for the next 4 months, head down. We're getting through July. Once you get to August, that is when you have campaign season. If you are looking to get involved and you don't know where to start, greatersocietymedia@gmail.com. reach out to me. I will get you involved with me. I will get you involved with the Bucks County Young Democrats, the Bucks County Democratic Party, whatever you want. If you're further left, I'll find you an organization. I don't care. If you are somebody that doesn't live in Bucks County, I will help you find an organization. Anything that I can do to help you, I will do, because I know that collectively we will be better off because of that action. So if you don't know what to do, please ask me, and I will do my best to help you get to where you want to be. If you are looking to work for a campaign, if you want to get it, if you want to be a campaign manager someday for, you know, some presidential campaign down the line, you start here. You start locally. I will get you connected with the campaigns. I can't guarantee you I can get you a job. That I don't have that ability. But I will get your foot in the door, and it will help your campaigns locally get engaged, get involved, and they can win, or give them the best shot to win, and you'll get the experience that you want. So there's a million different things that can come of that, right? So with all that being said, I do want to close tonight, and you guys can definitely give me your hot takes in the chat on the Elon Musk deal falling out with Twitter. And the more interesting part now, I guess, will be the right wing response to this. What does the right wing do now that they lifted up this guy? Oh, Elon Musk is going to save Twitter. He is the guy that's going to save free speech. And then it's like, oh wait, no, he doesn't want to buy it now because there were bots on there, or whatever other reasons he was trying to say. But the concept here is that he's trying to back out of a deal because he didn't know that there were bots on Twitter, which anybody that uses Twitter knows that there are bots on Twitter, and you don't really have to be on there for very long. As I fix my hair, because wearing these headphones is ridiculous, but you don't have to be on Twitter very long to know that there are tons of bots that are automated, and they will, like, if you put a hashtag, Democrat, they're going to respond to it. Or you put a hashtag progressive, they're going to respond to it. Actually, we see a lot of it on Instagram too, where I did notice when I was volunteering for the Pride Fest, you put hashtag LGBTQ, you got a ton of bots immediately responding to that stuff. So every social media platform has bots, so you'd have to be a moron to not understand that. And for somebody that's supposed to be this brilliant genius, this person that's going to revolutionize the world and colonize Mars and all that stuff, he didn't know that there were bots on Twitter. Come on. So in the clause for there's going to be a ton of litigation that's going to go on with this, and I'm smiling because it's kind of funny because of the push and pull and the visual of, like, oh, he was trying to save free speech and now he's just gonna back out and, like, I guess let free speech die. But there's a clause in the deal supposedly, and I didn't read the deal. I don't know that it's public. But there's a clause in the deal that is a $1 billion contingency clause that if either side backs out, that they could, sue for damages of $1 billion. So $1 billion to, Elon Musk is a big number, but it's just an enormous amount of money. Like, take him out. Just think about $1,000 million. That's $1 billion. That's the amount of money that he would just be forced to pay for backing out of this deal if, all the litigation goes through. So it's interesting to me that the response hasn't really been that strong in the other way, where it's like the Republicans and the right wingers and especially the far right were really lifting up Elon Musk to be the savior. And, like, now that he backed out of it, Trump is on Truth Social, dragging him. I'm going to see if I can pull it up real quick. Which he's just absolutely dragging him on there, which if you don't know, that's just the, like, right-wing equivalent of Twitter, or like the like if you get banned off of Twitter functionally, I guess. Pardon me for all of this crap that's going to be on the screen here, because that's just how I guess it is with some of these websites here. But here, it looks like a tweet, and this is the New York Post, so there's a billion ads and crap. So if sound starts playing, I apologize. But so Trump tweets on Truth Social: when Elon Musk came to the White House asking me for help on all of his many subsidized projects, whether it's electric cars that don't drive long enough, driverless cars that crash, or rocket ships to nowhere, without which subsidies he'd be worthless, and telling me how he is a big Trump fan and a Republican, I could have said, drop to your knees and beg, and he would have done it. So this is the type, like, that's like utter tearing into by Donald Trump, which is like frankly the funniest part of Trump. If you could dissect and like pull Trump away from like ever being president and be like, he's just a guy on Twitter, he could be hilarious, but he was and potentially could be the president again, so you obviously have to take him very seriously. The same way, again, that we have to take Dr. Oz seriously. I will harp on that until the end of time. But he's dragging Elon Musk, and some of that's true. Some of it's like not real. Like, let's be honest here. Electric vehicles are the future. That is a great thing, and there are plenty of places that you can charge an electric vehicle. But the truth is that Elon Musk has received billions of dollars in subsidies for his businesses. He has received all of these tax cuts and breaks for his businesses. So frankly, he probably did vote for Trump, and if he says he didn't on Twitter, but I would believe it if he did, and I would believe that he was saying all this stuff to Trump because he's a weirdo, and he is just trying to be like buddy with these rich guys that can buy all these fancy cars and all that, and all these yachts and whatnot. This is why we have to always remember, and here's like the real point, is that wealth, money, riches, cars, houses, that does not make you somebody that should run the country. That doesn't mean that you should be put into positions of power. Those things are not inherent qualifications. And it kind of piggybacks off what we were talking about with Malcolm, is that just because you don't have money doesn't mean you're less, doesn't mean that you can't go and succeed, doesn't mean that you can't go and get the job, go get elected. You're starting at different points. But inherently in this country, we have to evaluate, why do we admire certain people that are rich more than the people that are middle class, working day in, day out, grinding? Is it because the person works 400 times faster or 500 times harder than the average American? That is not the case. I can tell you that as a fact. But we have to get over like the fetishization of wealth in this country to get beyond that, and then start looking at the actual qualifications of people to run a country, to run for Congress, to look at the people that are speaking to the issues that matter, rather than being like, well, you know, Elon Musk is rich, he could definitely run for this or that, or he should definitely be on the White House Council for Business or whatever, even though he's on there to get giant tax breaks, the same way like Jeff Bezos is. All these people are not inherently geniuses because they're rich. They're not Tony Stark. They're not these like mythological people that fallen from the stars are here to rescue us. We can make the difference. We can fight for change. We don't have to rely on the generosity of the benevolent oligarch to fall out of the sky and say, here, all of your problems are fixed. We have the choice. We can elect people that won't give giant tax breaks to Elon Musk and will maybe subsidize things that are valuable to our society, and maybe to things that are going to build up our country in a non-personal profiteering way. Maybe we invest in healthcare policies that give everybody access to healthcare, which makes it easier for people to get different jobs, which increases job mobility and the mobility in moving up within a certain company, because you don't have to rely on the benefits that you're tied to staying in a certain spot. You can go get training and go to school, when instead of giving tax breaks to Elon Musk, we can invest in colleges to be free, at least one tuition-free college in every single state. That was my proposal when I was running for state representative, and tuition-free trade schools, 2-year schools for the trades, to make sure that we invest in trades in this country, which we desperately need to do. So that way we don't have the disproportionate impact of colleges versus trades, or no school, or joining the military. Because granted, we can instead of giving tax breaks to those Jeff Bezoses and the Netflix and Elon Musk's, we can invest in our veterans. We can improve the VA. We can give everything in the world to the veterans. We can do everything we want with that funding. I mean, not literally everything, but you know what I'm talking about here. We should, yeah, I agree. So David in the chat says the rich should at least have to show their tax return to prove that they are rich. And frankly, if you're running for president, you should have to show your tax returns, because of the fact that there are inherent potential conflicts of interest, which used to matter, but they broke. I forget the actual off the top of my head, the federal law that was supposed to do that, like Jimmy Carter, where he sold his peanut farm because of the potential conflicts of interest that he would have as the president. Trump disregarded that altogether, just let his kids run the business, which of course is not divesting from the business. So there's inherent problems, obviously, with that. And Elon Musk, he's not running for anything, but I want to just hammer home: the benevolent oligarch doesn't exist. And the people that do good things, you can take the Bill Gates, you can take the Warren Buffetts, the people here that pay people well, or they'll do a lot of charity. That's all fine and good. But a society that lets someone accumulate so much wealth that they are functionally oligarchs and they run the country is a broken system, and one that we need to reevaluate. A tax code that is functional to invest in the average working class person, to invest in families, like Malcolm talked about, the Pennsylvania child tax credit that they were working on. The federal tax credit is now null. It doesn't exist anymore. Remember when people talk about, this is another tangent here in a second, but remember when people talk about inflation right now, it is not because of the $2,000 checks that people got, the $2,000 checks that were sporadically given out, or the unemployment that was given out and stopped over a year ago. So don't tell me that inflation in June of 2022 was impacted by the unemployment that stopped like over a year ago, the extended unemployment. None of that stuff actually has an impact, and anyone that's telling you that is lying to you. Telling you that for yes, the Hatch Act. Thank you, Sam. The Hatch Act, which was supposed to be something that Trump may or may not have gotten actually in trouble for and prosecuted for, but of course, a weak attorney general's office won't go after his own attorney general is not going to go after him, obviously. But I know like federal courts have been hearing cases around some of that stuff still, and maybe something comes of it. We'll see. But we make the changes. We elect people to the Senate like John Fetterman or Tim Ryan or any of these people that are running in these swing states that can make a difference. And with those extra seats, we can pass legislation in the Senate and in electing someone like Ashley Ehas, which will flip a Republican seat to a Democrat. That is the type of thing that we can materially impact just by showing up and getting the job done. So don't rely on the wealthy to come in and swoop in and, be, oh, so gracious, here you go. That's not going to happen. It never has happened. It won't happen. and we all need to take action in the positive direction, putting forth our message and fighting for our collective vision of what the future is. So I guess we will see as the continuing unfolding. There's not that much beyond just the initial reporting right now around this Twitter fallout. But if Elon Musk loses $1 billion because of this, that'd be funny. I would prefer that billionaires don't just be able to just swoop in and buy social media companies. In fact, I actually believe that social media companies like Twitter and Facebook should be broken up. So don't ever conflate the ideas that I think that it's the same that, oh, we can have one billionaire own it and it's okay and another one not okay. So just don't make that. Like Facebook is a great example of that. Break it up. Use the antitrust laws that are on the books. But with that being said, that's what I have for you guys tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out in chat. I hope that you enjoyed the interview with Malcolm, and I was joking about it, but my goal is to get him out into Doylestown area and have events. So if you have certain events that you know of, that would be great, and you can send them my way. Or if you know it in Bucks County or just in general, we will organize that and get on it. If you did enjoy the show, we are a small platform right now. We're a very small show, even smaller than my old show so far, but we need your help to grow. So if you enjoy this show and you want me to continuing to get like great guests like that, if you want to see Brian Sims return, you want to see, who knows, maybe I can get some of the statewide candidates on. I have the connections to pull some of those favors, but I want to make sure that it's beneficial, because the time that they take to come and sit here and talk with us is time that they're not campaigning or time that they're not raising money, etc., which is vital to winning some of these seats. So you can help me by hitting the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you have, share this video with, 2 or 3 friends. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, engaging with the actual program once it's not live with comments helps grow the show. And this is what it's all about. It's about getting the message out there and engaging in the political discourse. And even if we disagree on some things, which I'm sure we do, this is how we work through some of our issues. We can build a better society, or a greater society, I should say, a better Democratic Party, and a greater future for America that I think we all collectively want, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Green Party, Libertarians, anything in between. I think that's what we all really want. That closing on that basic bargain that Malcolm was running on, and really putting the working people of this country first. So subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button if you want to get notifications for when we go live. You can follow the show on Instagram and on Facebook, Greater Society Media, and you can follow me on Twitter at Con O'Hanlon. I hope to see you guys there and see you in the show next week, which I'm going to try and do half the show pre-recorded, because I have to do the pre-recorded part tomorrow, and then do live sections after. So we will try to work out the kinks on that, and if you want to check that out, I will be having candidate for Pennsylvania's 1st congressional district, Ashley Ehas, on for next week. So if you want me to ask questions, you can feel free to shoot them to me on Twitter. And if you have guest suggestions for the future, email us at greatersocietymedia@gmail.com. That is a lot of plugging. Go follow Malcolm if you don't already. And with all of that being said, thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. So stay safe, take care, and I will see you next week.